Yeah. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for taking your time out. We're going to get started. It is 8 o'clock, and I'm welcome to Real Talk with LA. I got some great guests, and I'm really excited about this. We're going to be talking about breaking boundaries in relationships. So go ahead, do me a favor, go ahead and share this. Right. I got the wife ready to come in as well, so this is going to be really interesting. Because we're going to talk about and deal with certain elements of boundaries. Now, let me just open up and start this, because when we think about boundaries, you might think of childhood games you might have played, and there are certain areas in the field that were out of bounds. And these boundaries were helpful oftentimes to ensure that you all were playing and you're engaged in the game fairly, equally, and to ultimately keep everything in check. So boundaries growing up were like, they were the rule elements. And for many of us, I believe we have to deal with the fact that some of our boundaries may be good, healthy boundaries, and some of them may be off. And we have what I like to call emotional boundaries, very similar to sport boundaries, that are helpful for our interactions and helpful for how we deal with us, other people. But they serve as hopefully personal guides to help you determine how you're going to behave. And I believe in relationships. I think we have a lot of boundary issues. There's some good boundary issues, healthy boundary issues, and then there's some bad ones that we got to deal with tonight. So I'm going to bring, first up, I'm going to just bring the wife in and let her come and say hello, and then I'm going to bring our guests in, and we're going to all kind of talk through this thing. And there she is, wife.
Husband, how are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. Glad to have you on board.
Did you get my message?
Uh-oh. Let's see. Let's see what the message says. Oh, wow. That may be an issue. Let me see here. So say hello to the people real quick.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. I am so glad that you are joining us on tonight. And my husband thought in our robbery to have me with him again on his Real Talk with LA. So I'm excited about what we're going to dig in tonight with some boundaries and all of that good stuff. So you want to stay tuned. If you have questions or comments, please make sure that you are dropping them in the chat so that we can see them as well. So we can make sure we address some of the issues. And so I'm excited to be with you on tonight. And honey, if you need help with that, let me know.
Yeah, I'll probably need help because I can't focus on that. So listen, one of the things that we want to talk about is emotional boundaries. And I have two great individuals that are going to come on and help us talk through this. One, there's a marriage side of this, there's a single side of this. But I think we have a tendency, for the most part, we stay in our boundaries for the most part, because these are our personal rules. and some personal boundaries may be automatic choices that we make. But many people, and I know in marriage is interesting. In the beginning of my marriage, and Q, you'll appreciate this while backstage. In the beginning of my marriage, I had to learn how to set certain boundaries. And so my wife's on here, so she'll attest to it. I had certain boundaries that I didn't think were bad at all. I grew up in a flirtatious world, and I grew up, in a dog-eat-dog world, roof. And so I had to learn new boundaries in my marriage element because everyone that's out there does not have good boundaries in place. Whether you're married or not, those are, I'm going to call them boundary breakers. They're looking for opportunities to break boundaries. And so for us, we want to kind of deal with this. And then there's the single side of it. When you're single, trying to remain in a mindset where you understand that you're single, you're looking, but ultimately you need to still have certain boundaries in place so you can operate and function. All right. So with that being said, let's bring on. There he is.
I'm gonna step back 1 second so I can help you. Sure. I can do that from here.
Sure. All right, Q. Welcome. This is Quasim Johnson, minister. There's a whole bunch he does in the community. Real estate, he do a ton of things. Husband, father, and business mogul. There's so much that he does. You're in the middle of the community. You work in the housing area and helping people. Boundaries for you, must be something serious. Because you're always dealing with, wrestling with, and going through a process of trying to make sure that you have healthy boundaries. Talk to me about how do you set boundaries in all that you do?
That's a very good question. I'm still learning. It's still a process because I find that they kind of shift with the individual. And what I mean by that is, you can have your personal set boundaries and you can be a little more comfortable with certain people. I don't want to say crossing no boundary, but the leniency is there a little more. And then you realize that you also have people in your life that kind of push the envelope further, and you have to set the boundary line even further away from them because you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. So some certain situations require for you. It's kind of like I look at boundaries like like your property line around your house.
Mm-hmm.
And if you allow your neighbor's tree to start growing over, at some point it's going to end up being in your yard. But if it falls down, then you're stuck with the repercussions of that tree being in your yard. But had you set the boundary early and say, hey, this is crossing over my property line, we need to do something about this, it prevents long-term damage.
So here, let me bring my wife in because we're going to get sticky in a minute. I'm going to bring her back in real quick because I'm going to tap into something really sticky. But tell your wife to stop watching now.
Too. So
what's that?
Oh, I said she just walked in the door. So.
Oh my gosh! Gee, Willikers. Oh. All right. So, it's interesting because as a pastor, there she is. We got the wife there. Ooh, okay. So it's difficult when you are a people person in an environment where you always have to interact with several different people. Boundaries can be different for specific situations, and how you act toward a person can entirely different to how you interact with someone else. And it's interesting because you have healthy relationships, but as a pastor, and I think COVID kind of threw everybody off, which is cool because now I guess you don't really have to shake anybody's hand if you don't want to. You be like COVID and just fist bump them or whatever the case may be. But I guess in your line of work, you have to deal with people on a major level. and people want stuff from you. So they're looking, there's a thing that happens when they know you can meet a need for them. They kind of go out of their way, and the tendency to specifically try to break a boundary to get what they're trying to get across to you. Now, I'm not suggesting that you got hoes and different people trying to do all that kind of stuff, but I am saying that people try to be overly nice to someone that can give them access the way you have the ability to give them access to. So there's such a danger that exists in that. So the question you have, I guess, how do you create that social grace from your perspective, or the personal limits that tell you, okay, yeah, how do you do that? And watch this. Let me put a steroid on it. Especially when there's attractive people involved in the process. That's part 2 of the question. Go ahead.
One of the things is a benefit for me that helps tremendously is that the community that I serve, my wife is born and raised and has one of the largest families in that community. So I would be an absolute fool to entertain anything in the Asbury Park region. But also, it's just always conducting yourself professionally. If you always bring it back to a professional environment, there have been situations where you can see where a person was trying to push the boundaries, and just always bringing it back to, why are we here? And what can I do to help you? Because this is the goal, and everything else is, not even worth discussing. And then also, when dealing with people in the workplace, in the community, I always try to keep someone with me, because
there it is.
It's not me. Because I never want to make it that I'm making all the decisions anyway. This is a team, a collaborative decision that we're going to make. So I try to keep someone with me at all times.
Yeah, I think that's good. Now, I'm going to kind of include my wife in this one, because I threw an anomaly at the back end of it, but my wife gets advances on social media all the time. And there's always this element that you're trying to help people, encourage people, but then people, and I got some encouragements, not encouragement, I got some advancements as well. Not always what you want. I mean, I got advancements from some guys that, oh, you look really good. Oh, thank you. That's whoa. And so social media. What'd you say?
You find out y'all DMs popping.
Yeah, look, they're out there. I mean, the people are bold behind the typewriter. And my wife could speak to this.
It better be a typewriter too, and not a keyboard.
Did I say typewriter?
Yes, you did.
That was wow. That dated me, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
Typewriter?
Yes.
I didn't say typewriter.
You did.
Anyone heard typewriter, you were hearing wrong. But so hon, talk about how you deal with the boundary breaker.
I'm very upfront. So, I had a person, I call him Mr. Creepster, that, perpetrated that they wanted to be part of my business. And, at first it's like, oh, sis, you look nice. Okay, thanks. No big deal. But when I felt it creeping over, I was like very clear. I said, listen, I hope I have not given you any misunderstanding, but I am happily married. My husband's name is, and if you would like to talk to him, that is great. Other than that, we can't have any other conversation. And then I just blocked them. So I have found the block button, delete, is very helpful in that aspect. But I'm very upfront, like, hey, don't get it twisted. I'm happily married. I'm not looking for anything else. And I think it's dangerous when we play with like, oh, well, they're just nice. I just want to I'm not trying to counsel you. I'm not trying to be your friend. I believe in cutting it at the source, because I understand that in a moment of weakness, if you get on my nerves enough, I don't want the attention coming from someone else. And so I'm just very blunt. So it's no qualms if you've been down my page, I'm married. I think the danger it comes in is when you see people's pages and you never know that they're married. There's nothing ever that says it. And I don't seek the advice of other men at all.
Wait. You said something. Okay. So let me talk to, because we're going to bring a single person into this as well. We got the wife. This just went left.
It did not go left.
It did. Because now we got the big boss in there. So, for many people, the fact of the matter is, for married people, boundaries are interesting because we're not just talking about external boundaries. I'm wondering about even breaking boundaries in our relationship. Are there boundaries in the marriage? Are there boundaries that we set in our relationship that hinder our next level in our relationship? I'm wondering if y'all have a thought to that. Do we set boundaries in our own? I'm switching a little bit, so I'm now talking inwardly. So do we set certain boundaries that are in our marriage that stop us from going to the next level in our marriages?
Yes, definitely. I think that oftentimes the boundaries can be set off of past experiences.
Oh, that's
and
good.
Because of those past experiences, you won't allow yourself to go back into that vulnerable state. And then when that happens, those boundaries prevent next level growth in your relationships because you're still holding the individual and yourself hostage to what took place in the past under the mindset of I'm guarding from protecting us from the worst happening again.
Yeah. I think some feelings are unable to be reversed when we get into those elements. Not just that, but we're unable to take back words we say. And so when we go over the boundary, then we're like, okay, how do I put the game back on track in my marriage or in my relationship? And so there's a danger where we weaken our moments and we break down barriers that ultimately, when they're broken, we're like, oh man, now my emotional barrier is broken that ultimately held us together, kept us running together, kept us, loving the right way. But now there's something broken and there's a negative mood in there and I don't know where to go from there. So I think we have to really kind of keep examining those elements of our boundaries. And I want to bring a single perspective into this. And I'm going to see if I can do this. Oh, look what I did.
Look what your typewriter did.
Andrew, look at that. I did a typewriter move.
Yes, ambiance in his room.
Yeah, welcome to the room. We got marriage, we got single. You just went through something a little serious, Drew. I'm not going to put your stuff on blast. But you're now in single world for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's now single, guys. And he's got new boundaries that he has to put in place. Talk to me from your thought on how you see boundaries as a single person.
How I see boundaries. So it sounds like rules in a sense. And I think there's some people they set like certain boundaries, like I guess physically, on a sense, like, okay, maybe I'm not doing this till marriage, or nah, we gotta know each other for 180 days before we do this, that, and the third. But I think setting boundaries early is good, so you can keep parts of, not in the sense of like building walls, but you keep this part of maybe a conversation to be like, for example, like being fully naked with somebody, say emotionally, you're not going to do it with someone maybe you just met. Or whereas there's certain ways I can be with, I guess, everybody here on this call versus somebody I just met, because, with that comfortability comes, I guess, more access. But off rip, it's probably not as much access to certain parts of you.
Okay. So here's a thought for all of us. I wanted to bring us all together because when we're talking about practicing boundaries or breaking boundaries in relationships, I wonder if we give ourselves permission to say no, in whether it be in marriage or singleness, when it comes to certain boundaries. And we have situations where we really didn't want to do something, but we weren't quite sure how to go about getting it done. So the element of this boundary thing, and really why this hit me, is because so many people in our culture that we're in are boundless. I think we're boundless. We're in a culture where people are looking for opportunities to break rules. In the case of not just in marriage, you have people that are looking, no one cares about no ring anymore. And singleness, it's like, well, I just don't, I want to be booed up. And I'm shocked. I mean, you're boo-less, and the biggest boo day is coming up.
Not gonna hold you. I'm like, you know what? The fact this happened before Valentine's Day, I think I'm good. Because if things would have been rocky on the 15th, child. And you know they're not taking good receipts.
He said he didn't waste his money.
Yeah.
Basically, yeah.
I'm going to leave you alone there. I'm not going to mess with you, Drew. I hope you didn't do a cheap way out.
Cuffing season almost over anyway, Drew.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm trying to be cuffed by Jesus right now. So.
Oh, amen. I love it. Amen. Hey. I love it. So talk to me, guys, about within this getting a mindset around being able to have healthy boundaries. How do we, from your perspective, from the marriage perspective, from the single perspective, how do you, and I'm going to teach something here too. I'm going to give you some nuggets as well. And from your opinion, how do you practice healthy boundaries?
Who do you want to go first?
Let's get the married couple up.
Honest communication. And letting the person know exactly what your boundaries are. And sometimes you have to explain why. I know it's hard just to say, this is just the way it is, and this is a boundary, don't cross it. And the other person sitting back, but like, why? Because I know for me, if there's a boundary set that I want to cross, I'm trying to figure out if there's something that I can do to get across it. And that's not always good, because then it becomes like you're, lack of better terms, browbeating the person into crossing that boundary rather than it being an open door.
Okay. Wife, you being quiet over there. I know you got a tongue. Let us hear whatever's on your mind regarding.
No, I was gonna say, so if you're browbeating, then you're manipulating. And we have to be very careful not to manipulate to get to cross boundaries. So I'm gonna be real transparent, because we married 21 years in now. So I can say that. So when we were dating or courting, because we didn't really have a date process, and we knew we were getting married, but we made a commitment to be celibate before we get married. There were some times that Pastor tried to be like, well, I say,
whoa.
I'm just saying, we being transparent, we're trying to help the people with the boundaries.
Wait. We didn't talk about this exposure. Wait.
Okay, I'll leave it real clean.
No, go ahead. I'm okay.
But
look,
there were conversations. There were times that
I was trying to justify some stuff.
Right. And there were times that he was trying to go beyond the boundaries. But because of our commitment, to each other and to God, I just say, hey, no matter what I felt like on the inside, because we're gonna help some people today. Somebody has to stand for the boundaries. So I had to be able to say, you trying to be manipulative. And I think it's important to be able to have that conversation and not be offended when we're called on the stuff. Because the only way we get to the next level is to be able to be honest. So even like when you said in the beginning, you were flirtatious, by nature. And I had to say, hey, this makes me uncomfortable and this is why. And I think it's important to be able to hear each other when you are setting boundaries, that it's not a place where you feel like you're caged in, but I understand you and I love you enough and I'm respectful enough to understand what it does to you. I break those boundaries, because if we don't, and we're manipulated into it, then it brings resentment into the relationship, and more stuff that we have to deal with and unpack if we were able to respect why in the first place. That's all I was gonna say.
That's what I was going to say. I just think that it's important that we do respect the boundaries. I think that that communication on why that boundary is even there is important, and then from there, just in general, the world has no boundaries, has no guideline, and everything goes. And so when you're trying to stand for something else and you're trying to be in the world but not of, so it's just like, there's a separation. And so there comes a point to where with boundaries, it's like, okay, this is unhealthy, and could be detrimental. This could be perceived the wrong way. This could also mess up our witness. So I just think there's so much responsibility in trying to do the right thing, stand for the right thing. And, you just can't be caught 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because it just leaves the door open for, temptation, manipulation, and all of those other things.
And it's a good point you just said there too, was that the perception of what things may be, and boundaries prevent the perception from even coming into play. Because, for people, perception is reality. And if you have, if your boundary is not tight enough, then the perception could be there that something's going on that's actually not going on, because you didn't set a strong enough boundary to prevent that perception from coming into play.
Okay, so she tried to call me out, so y'all ain't gonna just get around. No, because y'all, you know what? I like the way y'all are playing it cool over there, Johnson family and Drew. Y'all playing it cool, but let us not escape. If she gonna expose me, we should expose it all. And I think
all right,
we need to make it known that there were days I had to leave her house because she was all over me. And I was like, no, you're not getting none of this chocolate.
I didn't say it was one way.
It sounded like it was one way. It sounded like it was one way. Did it sound like it was one way?
No, I was just giving an example. Okay. So, boundaries that was one form of a boundary. That's all I was saying, because I was speaking to the singleness in Drew as well. That you got to have that boundary and be able to go, hey, there were times that we came from not marriage ministry, counseling. And there were times that I was like, no, you can't come upstairs, because I know I feel some type of way. So no, and I lived alone. So I was like, no, I'm going to jump out the car. See you on tomorrow. There is healthy boundaries that have to be set. But even in marriages, back to what Q said when he said people's perceptions, if people feel that your boundaries aren't tight in a relationship, then they'll be able to say something and slide in or get close to, whether it's male, whether it's female. They feel that they got wiggle room, and they need to know that your unit is tight and that these things aren't okay. There are times I'm like, no, this is not a conversation for me.
Yeah.
This is a conversation for my husband. Drew, he's like family, right? But there's some things that I'm not going to discuss with him. And I'm not saying he ever tried to hit on me. Now, I ain't saying nothing like that. I'm just saying there's some things that I have a boundary with that I wouldn't discuss because I'm a female.
Right.
That's all. I wasn't saying that, Drew.
I think what she's saying is we got to know, because how to set rules with regards to who are we talking to. You can't have personal conversations with everyone. And I think for Drew and all the single people out there, you got to remind yourself. And I know we think, and I think this is a good question to throw out there. Can you have a best friend that's the opposite sex?
Absolutely.
Talk to us about that, Drew.
You absolutely can. I have a best friend. We met through her father, actually, who was actually my frat brother, but we clicked probably like in the 2015 era, and things were like, it was so crazy because we had a lot in common, and we had this kind of like close connection. Like, that was her dad, that was my brother, and it's funny, just even in the building stages, like I never looked at her in any other way than friend, and in her I got that same respect. Like, you know, she would come over, we would chill for hours. One time, like, you know, she even fell asleep at Roselle, and then like her mom was calling, like, yeah, she's here, she's good, like, and it was just like it was like a known and like a comfortable platonic level.
It's Drew, that you say that. I had the same relationship with somebody, and guess what? I married her. Hey, I'm not
I
putting.
was thinking it.
What'd you say, Q?
I was thinking it.
I'm just saying,
That's true.
I used to hang out with her all the time. If I could take y'all back, my mom would help us set boundaries. Like, oh, she got to go. You know, actually, she used to make every other woman go, and Tracy could stay all the way up to my curfew. My in-house curfew was about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Like, oh, okay, Tracy got to go now, and so forth. But we would talk, and so we were friends, and I'd have girlfriends and Tracy. And I was like, hey, she gonna be here after y'all gone, and so you need to go. You know, need to know that there's a boundary that you can't cross. So, Drew, just so you know, not trying to give you any ideas, but the friend that I had through high school, I married her. Well, so
However, because I'm looking at your chat, no, if we're married. No, my spouse is not having a female best friend. So let's just shut that down real quick.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. I just don't think that's gonna work, especially, you know, after you're married and it's not gonna be a best friend, you know, with my husband or the damsels in distress and all of those. No, there's not. We're shutting it down.
And if we be transparent, that was still an adjustment we had to make even after we got married. Because, and we can speak for the women's side, you know, women are manipulative too. That little damsel in distress. Oh, I need no boo. You don't, not now. You know, and I think there was sometimes I was like, hey, yo, you want, and sometimes it took really seeing some other side interaction, like that I wasn't crazy. And was like, oh, yo, you really spoke to my wife like that. Like, okay, no. You know, but I think it is important for each spouse to recognize that as well. Now, when you're dating somebody and it's no ring, you're not married to them, I feel you should be able to have whatever friends you have still with boundaries. But I believe that once you become married, now you need to be friends with my wife. You know, and we all cool, or you need to be friends with my husband, and we all cool, then we could be cool collectively. But y'all not just gonna hang out with just y'all.
Oh yeah, I think I lost a whole bunch of friends that way.
I mean, and I just think as a friend, you know, they should respect those boundaries as well. And if you can't, then, you know, what is your motive? Why can't you respect that?
Yeah. So Drew, I think you I don't know. You keep being friends with that person. That's really good.
I'm gonna take all these notes because it sounds like as soon as you make the marriage commitment, there's a lot of people that get demoted in the process. It seems like a company like you, Miss Pastor Tracy, you're CEO now, and then all the other female friends just got fired, furloughed.
No, you know what? We still have female friends, but you're not gonna act like I'm not the wife. So if you can't respect that, he can't pop up at 10 o'clock at night to come see about your kid. He ain't their daddy.
And in the relationship aspect, he has to keep that same respect, because with boundaries, what the line that you don't draw, people are gonna walk all over unless you like drop the hammer in a sense and make it real. Like, hey, like I know what you're trying to do, but this ain't that.
Right. And now all my friends, I wanted to be his friend, and it was vice versa. It was just some people that really didn't care to be my friend, and so it was like, well, I'm not gonna choose. Like I'm the one. I'm married. We in this for life. So we have to figure out how this works. And if your friends cannot respect your spouse enough to be in relationship with them, then they don't respect you enough.
So I don't know if are we in exposing mode? Can we expose our stuff? So we got married, y'all. And my wife was had a man friend for 7 years. There was a man friend. and the person wanted to come visit her in our new home.
Oh no, that wasn't him. That
Tony?
was yeah, it was the same amount of time. That was from high school though. I was thinking of the other one. All right, go ahead. I had long relationships, y'all. I didn't date for like a year, so
Wait, let me spill this tea.
you can spill the tea.
Okay, so
It's a joint, Pastor. That ain't tea.
no, the tea. I'm holding.
That was a joint. That wasn't tea.
I'm
No,
holding the cup.
It don't look like
Okay.
that. No, I need you to hold the cup like you're holding the cup. It looks like you're taking a puff pack.
It's a teacup. Y'all see the teacup?
Yeah, don't.
Yeah.
Oh, now
Don't.
that's
Hey, can you focus?
all right. So she asked me. We were married 1 year. We moved into our new home. Oh
No, we had Nehemiah.
no, I don't think we had any kids.
Yes, we
at
did.
this point.
Oh, okay,
Well,
go ahead.
well,
I don't know
anyway,
which one.
ex 7-year-old man decides he wants to come and visit, and visit her and say hello. He was in New Jersey, and she was like, "Would you have a problem with that?" I was like,
Now,
"No."
understand, I was like, you don't have a problem with that? I wasn't like, ooh, I was very awkward. Let's put that out there.
Look, I'm confident. I'm like this. Okay, that's what you want him. He could come over. I want him to see that I took you to the next level, because So he came over. I was there. I'm like, "Hi, how you doing? Y'all want to talk about boundaries? We talking about boundaries." I'm like, "Hey, how you doing? Okay, look, I'm gonna go. She got this. I'm sure this is gonna be all right." And I looked at her. I gave her the look. I gave her the look and said, the boundaries. You only get to stay on this first floor.
No, you're making it sound.
I had to
First
say
of all,
that.
we did have Nehemiah because I remember coming down the steps with the baby because I was just told like why. Now understand that Pastor was friends with the brother of the person. And I was like, hey, I just got this weird call and they want to pop by. And he was like, oh, cool. I was like, you cool with this? Because I really wasn't that cool with this. And I was just like, okay. And so I made sure my kids was in my arms. So let's preference that. Okay. You can't come past my living room. Okay. And I want to know, what did you want?
Well,
So this was no we reuniting friendship. Let's get that clear.
it sounds like she's in real defense mode. I want to take.
No, I just don't want people to have no perception, that I was trying to find out.
21 years ago. 20 years ago.
Yes.
But we're talking about boundaries. So here's the question out of this. Let me fast forward. Can exes come around, Johnson family?
For what?
Exactly.
What?
Why is there a need?
I don't know. I'm just asking.
One, I think for me, I think that they're exes for a reason. And X now marks the spot. So for me, there's no reason. I mean, I do have people that I've dated that are still connected, like on Facebook or whatever. But it's not anything to the level where we're just all going to be kicking it. Like I haven't experienced that. And from her standpoint, like I don't recall. I only recall one dude that I know of, and that was shut down real early in our relationship. And
Okay.
I mean, we've been together for a long time. And
22 years, yeah.
yeah, so we're going on 15 married, but we've been together 22 years, and I really don't see a need for an ex to come into play. I mean, we've been together so long, especially at this point. If there's somebody from 23 years ago, it's like, well, what?
That's from 2 years ago.
What exactly? Oh.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if it was
Yeah.
somebody from 23 years ago, it really hasn't been 23 years since y'all communicated. I was 21 years old when we got together, 22, 21. So for me, this is, as an adult male, this is all I know, really.
Wow.
It's not like I'm that much older than him. He makes it seem like I'm like, like ancient. I got
Single mama.
She was already a manager when I met her.
2 years.
She was already a managing corporations.
Don't worry, my wife is my old lady. She's 3 years older than me.
Yeah, and that's not something I would even consider now, because I also believe that there's a maturity level that comes in the relationship and the marriage now. My husband I would say he's a unique guy, because he always be like, yeah, I just want to show people I'm not that chick, I will admit. But I do feel that we definitely have healthy boundaries now, and we've grown through some things, and that's why we could talk about it without no type of feeling at all. So I would pose to Drew, what are some of the boundaries that you would suggest singles put? I ain't gonna say you, I'm gonna say singles, that you feel should be put in place when it comes to even dating.
That's a good question. I believe there's certain, like, I guess I feel like there's certain reserve in yourself or demeanor that you would have with someone, I guess, you're like actually pursuing or planning to see on that level. Like, and for example, a boundary is that you're not that way with, say, everybody, because like if you don't set that up there, like certain, because we all know there's certain body language. Body language speaks further than lips can.
What is that way? What is that way?
Yeah.
That way.
We're all adults here, Drew. Let's
What you mean?
Like, Lord Jesus, help.
Wait. I got a question for Drew.
What's
Do
up?
you test drive the car before you buy it?
You watch a YouTube video on the review, and you respect the car and the car's boundaries, and you sign the paperwork. That's faith. It's faith.
Faith is the paperwork.
You do the paperwork.
You do the paperwork.
I'm afraid of what the video is.
right.
Like
the corner. 10 seconds. But no, I think the boundaries need to be set on I think you should still get to know people, and I think the boundaries set are kind of gauged in, I guess, the intentional questions and intentional getting to know somebody in that process. You can, gauge what type of person is, are they, all right, can they listen? Like, okay, do I even want to let them into this part of my life, and still getting to know them, and then you kind of work from there. But I think you can't. Not every boundary is set for every. Is not the same boundary is not set for every person.
So I'm going to change the question from a car, because there's single people out there. You're a single man. You love God, but people up here. Drew, run. Questions are coming. Don't worry. I'll bring some single women on next week. But so Drew, question is, these boundaries we're talking about, but you're single. How do you know when the person's the one? Do you get to test drive the car? I mean, I didn't get to test drive my car. My wife wouldn't let me have none. I tried everything. I even used biblical references to get some, and I got none to the night of. That was just, it was good though, but I just wish I had a taste.
I'm gonna stop it right there.
Really?
We know it was good. You got 2 kids.
We didn't need anything else.
But that's besides the point.
So the question is, you're single, you're 20 something.
26.
And marriage is around the corner at some point.
Where?
Hey, you don't know when. You don't know
where you at.
Come up on you so fast. Kwasim, tell him it'll just sneak up on you.
Yeah, you were. I wasn't expecting it. I knew I didn't want to go nowhere, but I didn't know I was going to do that.
Listen, the fact of the matter is, thank you, Kim. Kim, people are doing it. They're test driving. So I think I'm trying to ask the question, because we're talking about boundaries tonight, is how do you set healthy boundaries in that when everybody wants to test drive cars? Okay, let's stop saying test drive cars. Everybody wants some sex. They want to touch a little something, feel a little something. They want their desires met.
So let's deal with it from this perspective. We have a different testimony than you got. We dated for a while, probably 7-8 months before we were living together.
Wow.
7-8 months before we were living together. And
y'all wasn't saved.
What's that?
That was pre-save days.
Yes, it was pre-save days.
For me.
Yeah, for her. I knew the Lord, but
I was just a heathen. I'm sorry.
But it was a little. Our testimony is a little different. So we were living together, and so we never went through that real courting stage. We went from living together to bills together to dealing with now she was pregnant in the process, and it's probably the first that anyone's going to hear this, including my daughter. We weren't technically together when she became pregnant. We had broke up, and I was out of the house. We weren't living together. I think it was one of those late night leaving the club slide throughs that
How is it
real, right?
You sound like you are a little ratchet.
I'll tell you, she was a heathen.
That means he was a hypocrite, Lakeisha.
I was about to say, well,
I was manipulated. So one of the things that I knew for the beginning of everything, I knew I never wanted a baby's mother. Like, that was never going to be my story. And I remember I was y'all know, I live the street life. I was on the block, and she pulled up on me. And if you know my wife, she never involved herself in that world with me whatsoever. Like, I'm not going there. And when I saw her pull up, I knew that something was real. And she told me, and I was just like, hey, let's go home. And this is after I proposed to her. She said yes, and then we broke up. And then
you see stuff here, boy.
Yeah,
I'm telling you,
got back together and had to learn new boundaries.
This is
at that point.
This is so
we can really get this in count.
but when you talk about this, it's so funny because our daughter was our flower girl in our wedding. And so once my daughter told me, she's like, I want my daughter to be the flower girl in my wedding. And we're like, no, let's back up. And having to have that conversation to be honest and say, you know what, we weren't, at that time, I didn't know the Lord and weren't, living a holy life. So things were a lot different, and just trying to instill that, even though you didn't do it yourself and you didn't live that, but still trying to have those, that foundation in your household. That, it shocked me. It was like, wow, like they're looking at us, and everything that we do, it matters. The way we live our lives matters, and the way that even when we fall and we falter and we mess up, even, just being able to have those conversations with our children so that they know, we love you, never do anything to that you weren't here, but we weren't, we weren't the way we should have been.
And
that also taught us that boundary shift with experiences. So your experiences in life are oftentimes going to shape those boundaries, because if you never went through it, you wouldn't know to put that limitation on it.
That's good.
So when you go through things, it's recognizing, hey, how did I get here? How did this happen? Where did it start? And then when you're honest with yourself of where that started, or now you can be honest of how to prevent it.
Right.
And that's important.
And I think it is important for people to be honest with where they are. And so I don't want anybody on here to think like if they, they've had children out of wedlock or anything that, that God doesn't love them. We're not saying that at all. And, I thank God that y'all are truly a godly example of a godly family, and that thank you for your transparency, because everybody wouldn't be able to share that transparency. Like we are just out there. So I thank y'all for riding with us.
I'll learn a new boundary tonight first.
We're like, listen. But so Drew, when we're posing our question to you, I'm posing that question as a believer. Because I do know, there are people like him said that are doing it that still may be believers. Now, let me be clear, before pastor, that was not my commitment. It was a commitment that I made, that I wanted to be celibate before I got married. So he got the stronghold of me being like, listen, I done did that. It didn't work.
Whoa.
I haven't finished.
Wait, no, I want to jump in there because I want to throw my tip in there because I was 2 years celibate.
I was about to say that.
Okay, all right.
I'm just speaking for me. I wasn't celibate as long as he was, but I knew that what I had done did not work. Okay. And it was fortunate enough that he had made a decision to be celibate even before me. So even when I wanted to fall, I valued his commitment as well. So even whether I had to remind him of his or he had to remind me of mine, that is what really truly kept us. And so
did y'all have that conversation as friends?
No, we didn't.
We did not.
We never had that conversation as friends.
Now, let me spill a tea on this very quickly, and I know we're at our time limit. The truth of the matter is, she came home and went with someone else. She decided to date somebody else, came home, was dating someone else who had much more money.
I wasn't even home yet, first of all. And I asked you your permission. You're right. Like, I needed his permission, though. And I was like, hey, what you think? And he was like, yeah, I think you should date him. So let's make
whoa. I said, do what you feel. Do what you feel. You have the story wrong. The story is wrong. Let me tell you something.
Anyway, so the question was to Drew, as a saved young man, they want you to stop beating around the bush. And they want I'm reading the comments, they want some specifics on how would you encourage or what boundaries would you set. They was like, I don't know what that thing is. So I'm just asking. And I'm not saying that you got it all figured out right now. So you don't have to be under that pressure. And y'all don't come and
let me help him. Let me give Drew some framework. And Drew, you could just comment off of my framework because we're at our time marker. So this was so good. I want to say thank you guys, just being real, telling your story. So here's the thing, Drew, and I think for every single person listening to this, and our married couples can chime in with the wrap up this too. There's two things. Either you're going to take responsibility for your boundaries, or you're going to give someone else that permission. So there's two aspects. Either you put the demand on others around you that have healthy limits. I think my wife and I experienced that. We both had to put the demand on each other, or you learn how to establish your own limits and boundaries. And so when it comes to being single and trying to do the relationship thing, it's so imperative that you establish your own limits, your own boundaries. If you're going to make the decision to test drive the relationship sexually, if you're going to make the decision to go down that road, understanding. Now, me personally, it was good because one of my boundaries were, I said I'm probably not going to marry anybody I slept with already. So that was my boundary. I set that boundary in the beginning. She knew that boundary. I told her that boundary. So that's why she wouldn't give me none. So I'm saying that. So I'm saying that for our singles is you have to learn and establish your own limits and boundaries. She knew when to kick me out. I also knew when not to go in. And so without personal boundaries, it stands to reason you'll eventually become involved in some areas and lack boundaries. I'm talking to believers. So your best choice is to gain understanding about your personal limitations, your emotional limitations, and demonstrate them yourself. You are going to have to manage them. So he held up the Bible. The element of it is if the word does not be the guide for your boundaries as a single, what happens is we have a lot of Christians sleeping around. We have a lot of Christians that have no boundary. We have Christians that are shacking. Please forgive me. We have Christians that don't have it because they have not set those as boundaries. Like, you gotta, if you like it and you love it, put a ring on it. That gotta be real for you. If you like it and you love it, put a ring on it. You gotta kind of say it, but live it. And so that's, Drew, I don't know if you want to piggyback on my summation, but I wanted to kind of give everybody that backdrop.
The framework was great. And I absolutely, I think everybody needs to pay attention to what you said about setting it yourself and being concrete on it, 10 toes on the boundaries that you set, and don't waver in it, even the moment, because there are going to be, even y'all said yourself, you're going to have those weak moments, or you're going to have those moments where someone's going to want access to that area, and then you're going to have to be able to like reaffirm why you have those boundaries, and be confident in it, because if you don't respect it, nobody else will. So I definitely agree with that.
Thank you. See, I figured I'd help give you a framework. Johnson, you guys want to chime in any part of that?
I will just say that in order to set those boundaries, like you said, you got to be real with yourself, and you got to have a standard. Like, what is your standard based off of? Because if we're basing it off of what goes on in the world and what everyone else does, then, as you said in the beginning, anything goes. So if you're basing it off of a biblical standard, then I think it's easier to set the boundary, but harder to keep it.
Good. That's good. So let me just say this also for those, I see this, a few people responding. There are some singles that are doing it right. You're not all over the place. Please, I'm not putting a marker. We got Drew. Drew is living right. We got several individuals that are functioning and doing their thing. So I don't want you to think I'm grouping you all, but I'm saying the culture of what's going on is there's a loose element. And so we need to be able to set our boundaries. And so we're not breaking boundaries that God set up in place. And so even for marriages, it's so hard if you don't set your own boundary, if you don't put it up, if you don't learn how to establish your own limits and your own boundaries. I'm not going to try to minister in the strip club. That's not my anointing, and I'm saying that because there's some people have it. We met a couple, my wife knows, there's a couple that is they have a ministry called Triple X, and they minister in they go to try to save the lives of strippers and those who come out the strip club. I was like, I met them and I was like, y'all are amazing people. I'm not going to make it. Those are my limits and boundaries. I might go through a couple of months or two, but somewhere along, I might not make it. So the element is knowing your limits, knowing Drew, your commentary, your nonverbal commentary is off the charts. But the fact of the matter is, you got to know your limits and your boundaries or where you can't. If you can't minister to certain people, because you whatever inside of you, then you have to shift it. And so we have to be able to know our boundaries, set them in marriage, but set them in your singles. Know your limitations. All right. I don't know, Trey, if you wanted to kind of chime in as we wrap up.
I think you put it really, really well. Set your boundaries. No, for believers, our boundaries should be based on the word first, not on our feelings, because our flesh will always fail us. I just say, remember, when you lay down with somebody, you get up with a whole bunch of people, and so you really do spiritually. And so that's all. I thank y'all for the transparency, and even for those that are on the line, I pray that y'all have learned something, because being vulnerable. Not for you to throw something up in somebody's face, but for you to grow through it and have more than just some good tea to drink. Even though it was good now, it was good tea. But
good tea. Hey guys, thank you so much for being a part of Real Talk with LA. And that was my teacup. Teacup. 3 fingers out like that, you hold a teacup. But now if you put it the other way, it becomes the other thing. Yes, I don't do that kind of stuff, please.
I need you to stay focused.
Yes.
So, hey, I want to say thank you guys so much to joining into Real Talk. If you've enjoyed it, share it, share it, share it. Thank you so much for my guests that came in today, the Johnson family, Kwasim, and our guest appearance, Lakeisha. So much for just stopping.
I invited myself.
Yeah, thank you for just like pausing and saying, you know what, I'm going to jump in here. I appreciate you. And Drew, holding it down for the singles. Thank you so much. You did a phenomenal job. I wanted you on here because of your stands and your recent shift in relationships that made for a good conversation. So thank you so much. And hey, wife, what could I say? You're excellent. I appreciate you. Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed this Real Talk with LA. To my guests, thank you again. And to each of you, this is Real Talk with LA. Thank you so much for joining us. Have an amazing evening.
Good night.
You can stay right there. Just want to remind you guys of some stuff that's coming up. Really, really, really exciting is get your copy. All right. If you didn't get the copy, also, I want to remind you that we have some great stuff on our YouTube channel, 6 Strategies to Succeed in Relationships and How to Build Strong Love That Lasts. Did that today. Go check it out on YouTube, Lydell Akins TV. All right, guys, have an amazing evening.